This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.
Welcome to the Self-Talk Radio Show.
Mind-changing radio.
When Isla finally left, I think I just realized that it was not death that I was afraid of, it was really showing up and living.
How do you go on after the loss of a child? My next guest, Jeannie Lynch, goes through her story and her journey of losing not only her daughter, but also her daughter's grandmother in a car crash in January of 2005. She talks about how to untie yourself from grief and the happy factor when we come back on Self-Talk Radio Show. Brought to you by
Scribe Media.
Unlocking the World's Wisdom. ScribeMedia.com.
Welcome to Self-Talk Radio Show. My next guest is a friend, is a professional, and she is all about the happy factor. Jeannie Lynch is my guest, and welcome to Self-Talk Radio Show, Jeannie.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I'm so excited to talk today about my favorite topic, being happy.
Yeah, no, we go way back because you were my banker.
Woohoo!
You know, and you went through some not so happy times with me as far as my banking was concerned.
That's so funny. You're the reason I had a job, Sarah. That's okay.
So I like to ask my guests if there's an incident that changed the course of your life forever to move you toward the work that you love doing right now. What was yours?
Yeah, it's funny, I think so many people that do this work probably always sound cliche, that moment of awakening, that terrible incident that led us to where we are. I will tell you that I think I was being prepared to do the work I'm doing since I was a child. So just a kind of a backdrop to this, when I, right before my incident, we'll call it, my awakening, which was my daughter's passing, in 2005, I was actually in counseling prior to that, dealing with this thing, this knowing, this understanding. We call it intuitive today. Back then we called it a curse, or I called it a curse, because I always had a sense of things that were happening. And in this one particular, session with my psychiatrist and in counseling, it was my fear around my time being short with my daughter. So 2 weeks after that last appointment, I get the call, my daughter's been killed in a car accident. So I go back to this gentleman and, looking at him, and he said something to me, Sarah, that meant nothing to me the day he said it, but means everything to me today. And he said this, he says, "Oh, Jeannie Lynch, what are you going to do? And what are you going to realize that what you're really here to do is to help others heal?" And I remember him saying that and looking at him like, "Heal me, dude."
Yeah.
I was in such a bad place. And he actually, that was the last appointment I had with him. And he handed me off to a woman who he said was going to help me understand and come to terms and deal with this beautiful gift. And truly the gift to me today is living an intuitive life. And what does that mean? We'll get into it today on our phone call, but just really not being afraid and being of service to others. And so you ask, what's the incident? Being prepared my whole life, but more importantly, this awakening when my daughter passed. And I feel, this is my learning from going through that experience, I was afraid of everything to do with death prior to my daughter's passing. I had lost so much in my life. I had a mantra, everything I love, I lose. So my life just kind of shaped that. So when Isla finally left, I think I just realized that it was not death that I was afraid of. It was really showing up and living. And
Wow.
I know. And so that's the gift that she gave me in her passing. And since then, I am like full in, as awake as I can be, always trying to be more awake and more and helping others to make this connection too. So that's my.
Yeah, I've got my jaw is on the floor. I had no idea that you had worked with a psychiatrist around your fear of losing your daughter, and then it happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
That must have been such an awful confirmation of your intuitive powers. Did you feel like, well, gosh, all I see is bad stuff, and I'd rather see? Did you see? Did you see Isla's passing, or was it more of a feeling?
No,
or a fear?
it was a feeling, and of course, let's just set this up. I don't think there's a parent out there that, as their kid gets on the school bus or we watch the news, that those thoughts don't cross our mind. But I think if you knew my backdrop to, many people in my life had already passed, that I seem to have a heightened awareness and just this fear, and kept logs and journals and recorded people. And, now I do my videos. I guess I still have it, but I was obsessing I was living, excuse me. I seemed to be a little bit overly obsessed with the thought. And so it felt like a curse at the time, but I don't have that thought today. So I must have healed something.
So when Isla passed, it was, can you set that up for me of what happened? I know it was in January in 2005. What happened that day?
Your typical winter storm, bad roads. She was getting dropped off. She was with her grandmother. The grandmother passed too, which is my ex-husband's mother. And that they were going slow, but then they crossed the medium and two cars collided and it turned into a tragic accident. And Isla was actually alive at the scene. And, she had passed at the scene, but they brought her back in transport to the hospital. And then later on that day, we made the decision to, that she was brain dead and we had to take her off life support, and the gift of donation for organs, and we went through that whole process.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And your whole life changes in an instant.
And to set that up too, Sarah, kind of like to the way all this kind of came to me, I was, post-traumatic stress syndrome. I was having out-of-body experiences because I didn't want to be in my body. And I would be, I remember once being out of, heading into work, and one of my coworkers, rapped on my car window and was like, "Are you coming in?" And I didn't realize it had been like 2 hours that I was just sitting there. And I was sitting there just trying to get the strength to go in. It felt like 10 minutes to me. So I was in full trauma when she first passed. So if that sets that. Yeah.
Wow. And, I think I met you a couple of years after it had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember bringing my son into your office, and I saw in your face something when you were looking at him, because he was about the same age as Isla at that time. And I just saw something, and I didn't know what had happened, but you had a connection with children, or people that came in, and I noticed it immediately. And I think that's what made us gel and what made us resonate. And some of your expertise is working with grieving parents who have lost their children, because you've walked it. You've walked that walk. And was there ever, how did you pull yourself out of that? I just, my hat's off to you, because I don't know if I would have that strength.
Yeah. I think, when I left the hospital that day, still breathing, I think everything after that is just to figure out how to go on. And here's what I do know, and this is what I coach to when I'm working with people in grief, that they want us to be happy. And I think we get tied to our grief sometimes, and we think that if we're not grieving, we're not honoring them. And we're so far apart from that. Really what we need to be doing is living our life, loving our life, living others, helping others, really showing up and being fully present. Because let's face it, if the wheels had turned and it was the other way around, would I want my daughter going through life marked, carrying grief, sad, disconnected? No, I would want her to be happy and joyful and honoring life. So, yeah.
We're speaking with Jeannie Lynch with The Happy Factor on the Self-Talk Radio Show. And when we come back, we're going to ask Jeannie more about how she discovered the law of attraction and how that was a catalyst into moving her forward into more happiness when we come back on Self-Talk Radio Show.
Think websites are old-fashioned, out of touch with your core audience? Think again. While your tribe may love you on Instagram, you may be missing out on a whole client base that searches for you on Bing or Google. Then what? WebHelp US built Self Talk Radio Show's website, and I love it. Podcast uploads, open graph tags, SEO stuff, they do it all for me. WebHelp US, they even think of things like backing up my website, checking for viruses and stuff I frankly don't have time for. WebHelp US, professional websites for big picture people. WebHelpUS.com. Welcome back to Self Talk Radio Show. I'm Sarah Spencer. My guest is Jeannie Lynch, and we're going to talk about your discovery of the law of attraction. I remember coming into your office again at the bank, and you said, Sarah, I found the most amazing book, and amazing is one of your favorite words. Didn't matter if you had a crappy day. I'd say, how you doing, Jeannie? I'm amazing. Every time I see, like there could be a hurricane going around you, and you were always, I'm amazing. That's my favorite thing about you. And you pulled off this book off your bookshelf and you said, oh, you have to read The Law of Attraction. And it's the story of Abraham, Abraham Hicks tells the story. So, but how did you find Law of Attraction for you?
This is probably one of my best favorite stories to tell because I fought the Law of Attraction tooth and nail. So my first time was reading something in a beautiful grief book around, how we choose our lives and everything in our life is an absolute direct relationship to what energy we're putting out. And I remember reading that, Sarah, in a book, and I threw that book across the living room and it ended up behind the couch and I just let it stay there. Okay. So a couple months later, again, I am in the thick of my grief. Okay. And I'm out in the car trying to get enough energy to go into work and put on my awesome face. Cause trust me, that's what you do, right? Just smile through it. Cause I was in sales, right? You know that.
Oh yeah.
So I'm in my car and I'm praying and I am, dear God, give me the strength to get through another day. Dear God, let me know my daughter's okay. Dear God, give me the knowledge and the information I need to know and, just find the truth. I am praying for information. Okay. So, or grace, right? So I get to work that day, excuse me, 2 customers in, this gentleman shows up and I think he just saw grief on my face. He said this word. I had no idea what it was. He said he was an empath. I didn't know what that meant. He said he was picking up and feeling so much grief around me. Well, of course, the minute he said it, I opened up and, told him, yes, he was feeling grief. Well, he said to me, I'm going to come back later today and I think I have something that will help you. Well, of course, you know what my first thought is. My prayers are being answered. Okay. So the day goes on. 5:00 that night, I find a CD on my desk and it's the sample CD to Esther and Jerry Hicks' work, The Law of Attraction. So imagine how excited I am to get in my car and put this CD, into the player. I put it in and I start listening to Esther talk about how she channels the guides from the other side, Abraham, and none of it made sense. And I thought, oh my God, that guy was a whack. So I took the CD out of the CD player and I threw it to the back of the car, me and throwing things, right? 2 months later, I am vacuuming up my car and the vacuum sucks the CD, the sample CD, into the vacuum. And I go, maybe it's time to listen to this again. I put the CD in, started to listen to it. And for the first time, now remember, it was handed to me 3 months earlier. It was the first time that I really heard it. And I was at just a complete opening. And the truth is, and this is what I know in working with people in the law of attraction, and I can't wait to tell you about this whole process that I have a little later on in our talking, but because it led me to this work. I know that when you're in the worst aspect of your life, the last thing you want to hear is that it lines up with you, that you ask for it, that, that is like the worst thing that you could possibly deal with or under, and so I get that. But what I have come to understand is that the information, when I was ready to hear it, it was there and I could hear it. I was in the frequency or the vicinity of it. So that's just a huge shift for me. And in my whole work, is absolutely based on the energy and the understanding of the law of attraction. And I love it because I think it's so empowering to know that you are absolutely in control, that you can create the life that you truly want. And we know this because it's all based on how we're feeling. And we own that, you know?
So I've got a question for you,
Yeah.
because some people have a hard time, like, well, everything happens for a reason. And that question drove me nuts, especially when it comes to something as sensitive as losing your child.
Yeah.
There is no reason behind that. How do
No.
you, is there a way that you pivot that, or how does that work in your life? Yeah.
So, the whole idea that everything happens for a reason, there are accidents that take place. Okay. I don't think we wrote in, I don't think that people plan to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and that God has a bigger plan for us. But I do believe that how we get through that process, and that's where we have choices. So with grace, are you going to be angry? Are you going to be in service to others? That's just a way I chose to deal with my pain, and to say you're not alone, and teach the skills of processing grief. And I will tell you, none of this ever was a walk away from my grief. In fact, I knew, because I have teacher energy, I knew that I wasn't just going to experience grief, that I was going to touch every aspect of it so that I could be of service to others. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. And, I think what's so powerful about you is when something adverse like that happens, you can either just check out of life or you embrace life. It's one or the other. There's no in between. And you chose to embrace. And you can't choose, like you said, you can't choose what happens to you, but you can choose how you react. And I think you've taken this and moved that energy in your life so that you're helping others. And I think that's amazing. What are some of your favorite spiritual YouTubers that are out there? I know, Esther and Jerry Hicks are top of the list, but is there somebody else that you're really enjoying right now?
Right now, Esther and Jerry Hicks, I'm seeing them in Orlando in a month. I'm so excited about that.
Nice.
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh, I love him. I would love to get him on the show.
Oh, Dr. Joe, he demystifies the law of attraction, and he literally is all about science. And I just love that because I believe, even being intuitive is really just math. It's the side of probability that you're actually on. Another amazing channel that I just partnered up with was Your Universe. And they're on YouTube also. They have an amazing website called The Science of Deliberate Creation. Jessica, she has 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, and she is a doctorate in quantum physics and the law of attraction and has become a personal friend of mine. So she's great.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Now, you had an exercise on your YouTube channel. You sent it to me. Now, I'm going to put it on your page for Self Talk Radio Show. I really enjoyed playing with it. It's talking about getting to your set point. And can you talk a little bit about that?
I would love to. So it's called the emotional set point process. And if you go on my YouTube channel, it is called, How to Be Happy. And I actually have a whole playlist designated just to the set point process. So the backdrop to this is all tied. It's a law of attraction test. So you've probably seen the conscious scale, that starts somewhere at the bottom with grief and goes all the way up to the top to joy. And what Esther and Jerry Hicks did really well, if you think about our emotions, there's thousands of emotions out there. And Esther and Jerry Hicks' work, they established the 40 feelings that you have out there. And I took the 40 feelings and I gave them an absolute factor. So let's give an example, like grief has a factor of 10, a very heavy value, where joy has a 1. And so through this small process of elimination, we basically go through and you say, I always feel these, I often feel these, sometimes feel these, never feel these. And you go through each of these feelings and you just do a process of elimination. At the end of the whole process, it truly can uncover blocks. It can show you those things that are getting in your way. It can score you in a sense, show you where you fall on this happiness scale. And what I love about it when I'm working with my clients is sometimes they're coming in and I can do this set point process. I can figure out and gauge where they fall on the scale. And guess what? If they're down by grief, despair, and anger, I'm not going to talk about joy and happiness. It would be ridiculous. Okay. So
Right.
it gives me a sense of kind of how to come in and start assisting somebody. If I can get someone who is in a complete despair place, if I can get them in the vicinity of hope, my job is done. I mean, that's the beginning, like hope is that middle way to being on the other side of it. And it's interesting, Sarah, I started this process because, well, I've been doing this work for 15 years. Here's my awareness to it, that the people who understand the law of attraction, who have a daily practice of it, who are responsible for their actions and get up every day and create and are deliberate about what they're creating, they have a higher level of consciousness. It's in the math, okay? I have proof if you want to go against me here, right? And then the people who come who have no concept of the law of attraction, who have they're the victims and they can't get out of their own way and they're miserable in their relationship as well as their job and they're just not happy and they're depressed or what, any of that. They have never heard of the law of attraction. So I was interested in assessing or doing some, data to kind of say, hey, look, here's the two different aspects of what's going on out there, whether you're happy or not. And there's literally a process that can assist somebody. And what is the process? Getting in touch with your feelings. So your feelings, truly, I say, your feelings are the queen, but your imagination is king. So that's a whole other aspect of the law of attraction. So people walk out after working with me with this process, and you can do this online. I did half the process there for people on YouTube. They can also walk away with, let's say, 6 words that are feelings that are absolutely blocking them. And what the block does, and here's an antidote for you, might be talking too fast today. I'm so excited about this work. They say you find the blocks. So let's say it's grief. And the opposite of grief is love. The opposite of grief is happiness. The opposite of grief is connection. So here's what we know. You cannot experience the opposite emotion at the same time. So the antidote truly does come from looking at the negative energy that you're feeling. So in any of these negative energies, you can literally go to the antidote, which is the opposite of that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I saw that in the work. And what I really liked the most about this work that you had on your YouTube channel was that the antidote is, what is it that you said? I just loved it.
Polarity.
The antidote is the polarity. Yeah, like you just said. So because mine, and they change every day because, hopefully,
gosh, yeah.
right? So I had done this when I was feeling pretty low about things, and I had powerlessness, which I usually don't feel powerless, but that day I was like, oh, I'm just feeling like I'm not in control of things. And, powerlessness to powerful, impatience to patience, doubt to belief.
Nice.
And I really enjoyed doing the exercise. So it was a really nice breather for me because my life was moving miles an hour.
Like you said that, because people go back to this process. I have a beautiful woman who came to me and she was, way up with 2.2, one of the highest scores I'd ever seen. And she scored, 2.25. Beautiful. There was little homework. Okay. She came back a year later. Her whole life had turned upside down. So we did the same process over again. And we uncovered in doing it again, different circumstances, that the 3 top cards that are the most important to her were in the rarely never pile. And so we could identify, from 1 year, she had lost all her power. And, so it was amazing to just have a process that showed exactly what the feeling was that was tied to her problem. So it was pretty cool.
And it's really nice to have somebody you can work with through some of that stuff too, and so
Yeah.
how do people work with you?
Sure. So, well, mostly from referral, right? So you've worked with me and someone else comes to me for the same reason. Usually, because I have so many things that I like to help people to do, most people come and find me because someone has worked with me and said, oh, she helped me with this. I was grieving. Please go talk to her. She's great with grief, right? Whatever the problem or the situation is typically I steer my work towards that.
We're speaking with Jeannie Lynch, and when we come back, we're going to find out how you can work with Jeannie, because we'd love to have you experience Jeannie and the happy factor when we come back on Self Talk Radio Show.
If you have sensitive skin, check out Pure Energy Apothecary. Their Pure Energy body care lotions, oils, massage oils, bath crystals, soaps, and body butters are ideal for sensitive skin. Perfect for gift giving as well. Check out your order at Pure Energy Apothecary and PureEnergyBody.com.
Welcome back. Jeannie Lynch is my guest with the Happy Factor, and Mean Gene 63 is the place we can find you on YouTube, right?
1963.
1963.
Yeah,
So Mean Gene 1963. And how do they reach out to you as far as wanting to work? Do you take people nationwide, or does it have to be in Florida?
Yeah, no, I've worked with people all over the globe. I have it set up now where I can do a Skype session and record it. So that's brand new for me. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've never stopped my Vermont clients, by the way. So many of you out there know that. We do over the phone, help people through their processes. Most people, I also have like a spiritual class down here so they physically come to work with me. Most of the thing and what I'm steering to is my YouTube channel, trying to build my community there. Once you get to 1,000 subscribers, you can have a community tab and I can respond. I worked with a woman last week who saw one of my videos, sent me a message saying, I'm sure you're too busy to talk to me. 15 minutes later, we were talking and solved a pretty big problem for her that day with just by talking. So absolutely through YouTube.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Before I leave, some people are a little bit cautious in working with spirit workers because they're either concerned about charlatans who are definitely out there and take advantage of people, or it might not jive with their religious belief. What's your response to them?
Yeah, I saw that question, I love that question. I get asked that question. And I just want to say that, when you're dealing with spirit, let's just give spirit another name. Let's say it's source or higher self. How about consciousness? How about wisdom, connection, tapped in, higher self? You can call spirit, it's energy, right? So, first off, everybody has the ability to be tapped in. And I think most people who see me who are having difficulty, I'm teaching them to connect to their own higher self. So I don't think that is the intuitive connection to self and source. So source is spirit, I guess I would say. And to the idea that it's against some religion, and I'm brought up Catholic. I love my religion. Doing this work doesn't take me away from my belief system. I also do believe, though, that religion can feel so contained for so many. And I believe we are all absolutely from one source. So where there's no walls, no bodies, no churches, no containment, I pray every day, Sarah. I've got 2 prayers, and it's, Dear God, send me the people that you want me to help heal, for I am here to do your work. So that's my intention. That's my prayer every day. And someone shows up, I'm assuming that is sent straight from my prayers. And if that's against, God or whatever, then I'm in trouble.
I think you using the law of attraction, you attract the people who need to work with you exactly when they need to work with you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jeannie Lynch has been my guest. Make sure that you find her on YouTube. I'm definitely going to put a link to her channel on Self Talk Radio Show. Thank you so much for being on the show, Jeannie.
I'm so happy, Sarah. Thank you. And hi to everyone in Vermont and around the world.
I'm Sarah Spencer for Self Talk Radio Show.
If you'd like to see our guest offerings, find this episode on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon Alexa. You can join us for the conversation on Facebook and see our guest offerings on selftalkradioshow.com.